Hello and welcome back to the OnlyAccies podcast. Today, Brandon, David and myself are joined by Ronnie MacDonald. Ronnie, first of all, thank you very much for joining us in the G4 podcast studio. We really appreciate your time coming down. I suppose the best place to start for us would be your first time at the club. So you came in and took over. What was it that drew you to the club in the first place?
Well, you're going back almost 20 years now, and that's 2003, and it's very simple. What drew me to the club was Colin McGowan coming in and said if I didn't put money into the Accies, they would be finished and we couldn't meet the wages the next week. So that was when the Jim Watson regime was just finishing. So it was as simple as that. I'd left Clyde about 9 months before that, and had a break for first break in a long time. And lo and behold, Accies were in bother. It was after the strike, and the money that was originally intended to finish the stadium had been absorbed by the football club to keep it going. So basically, we're in the worst of both worlds. Couldn't play the players we had, behind the rears, couldn't finish the stadium. Just horrendous, actually. So it was a case of either put the money in that week or it was finished. It was as dramatic as that.
Can you tell us a little bit about, because it's reported, was it the club was in debt of what, £5 million of debt?
5.3 million.
And what can you tell us about that? Was that like
the great news about that was I got the club for £1, but
the famous pound?
It's actually on my bathroom wall, and a picture. It actually is. At the time, George Fairley and I we tossed up to see who would get the pound because he was there to help me. So I won it. I'm actually really glad I've got it now because it's if you look at inflation, the pound hasn't just reached what I've spent, but it's. I need a big rate of inflation to get there.
To be fair, I've got £2 in my pocket. Can I have them after you?
Well, you know, the way with a lot of businesses and a lot of football clubs, you actually couldn't give them away for £1, and it's not actually buying in now. It's now maintaining and running it, especially if you look at obviously the way energy's going and everything else. It's incredible the way costs are rising. And
you spoke about coming in. The stadium was in total disrepair. I think you were quoted as the windows were smashed, carpets were removed.
Well, it was really horrendous, actually. All the carpets had gone. They'd originally been there, but they were gone. The ceiling panels were away. The players, because they hadn't been paid or whatever, somebody had decided to tan in all the panels up in the dressing room. And basically, the place was a wreck, and what became the stand that we let out, it was just a concrete shell. And to save money, a lot of the infrastructure had gone on as a cheap thing, so instead of having, say, full central heating through the place, we had storage heaters and everything was as cheap as it could be to finish it. So you could probably say I was suckered, but there we go.
And once you get in and saw the stadium, and obviously the large amount of debt, was there any second thoughts about doing it or no? What have I got myself into? The size of the job once you get in and seen all that?
No, not really. It's just that it was a case of getting on with it, and that was really what we had to do. So Colin focused on the practicalities and the building and raising the money, and I then focused on the football team. And it was only, 10 months after that we went to Forth and we got promoted when we looked as if we were dead and buried as a football club. So quite a big turnaround. But it was relatively easy then because I'd come from Clyde, and prior to that I'd been at the juniors, so I knew a lot of players, and it was much easier then to build a team in a so-called budget than it is nowadays, obviously.
You've obviously came to a club with all that debt, all the issues that were going on behind the scenes, and we know what's happened since then. Did you have a plan in place and know where you wanted to go?
Well, in everything it's the case, you can only do your best, and that applies to everybody. You boys here are doing your best with your podcast, and really just see where it takes you. If you had said at that point, we'd have had that run in the Premier League, and I don't want to say that's an unparalleled success, although it is for our club, but it's more about what we've achieved, and I'm really just about giving people a chance, and some of the people we've produced in the managerial side, the playing side, even the background staff, physiotherapists, sports scientists, even directors of football, that's a driving thing. Give Scottish people a chance as best we can. I've given a lot of Greeks a chance along the way as well, but by and large that was about. But I've got to say there was no thoughts of being in the Premier League then, because the last game of that season I'd come and I think we won 2-1 to stay up to stop going into League Two, and there was a very poor support that night, and the place was on its knees, really on its knees. So But having done it, you don't want to be a quitter, you need to drive on.
Just to touch on the Greek thing, I don't know if you saw on social media that Saris has been touting himself for a move back. I don't know if he's been in contact with you.
George is he's on a WhatsApp group with the boys he played with,
Yeah.
and he's always.
I'd love to be in that group chat. I can imagine it's a bit mental.
He's been very supportive, George, in the sense his daughter was brought here, so he has got a real soft spot for the club, and he keeps posting, flags flying, and soon back where we belong. I'm not very sure whether that's back down where I found us or back up the way, but no, he's a good lad, George. But there's no plans to sign George at the moment.
Just one kind of last wee question, just on your initial tenure, just when the way you put that there about obviously Colin McGowan said to you if you didn't kind of intervene, the club would have went bust. What actually compelled you to get involved though? Because obviously, like you said, you'd left Clyde. As far as I'm aware, you didn't really have any attachments to Hamilton as a club. So what actually brought you to take that on? Because obviously, if you're looking at that, you've got your own time, your own money. That obviously knowing they're in the debt, that is what actually compelled you to do it.
Yeah, well, there's, as far as connections to Hamilton, I never really had firm ones. I served my time in Hamilton as a chartered surveyor, and Fred Smith and Partners, I don't even know if they exist, but it's probably 40, 50 years ago. So that was really the only connection. And I was brought up in Barlanark, which, as the crow flies, is, 5 miles to Hamilton or something. It's not very far away. So I suppose I'm still a Ouija, as I was welcomed into the fold. But the real purpose was really, once you take something on, was to carry it through. It was as simple as that. And to answer your question, I'm an absolute sucker for tradition. I mean, I could easily be sitting in a director's box at Rangers and Celtic running their academy for them and just doing the how are you and everything. But I like to think I'm a real sort of people person. And last night was at the under 14s down at Woodside, Port Glasgow. Sunday morning I was along at Notre Dame Academy, which took me about an hour to find, because the last time I went there it was called Greenock High School. So I was searching for a school in Greenock, and I think, surely there's no two schools this size. But that was, for me, that's part of the fun. You see people you've seen for ages. We played a friendly against Benburb, 3 weeks ago, and as I turned up, there was a guy met me with a volley of abuse. When you brought that Mary Hill team here, you sure are dirty bastards. And that was, 20 odd years, longer ago than that. But anyway, I hadn't forgotten. So, but you have a laugh, these people that are really holding Scottish football. I like to see them all, meet them all. The higher you go, the worse people you meet. And I mean that genuinely. They're all there for the wrong reasons. They've not got a clue about lots of things. So I don't like being with them. And even when I go to away games, I like to keep away from the boardroom as best I can.
And we'd love to ask you about some of the managers you've had under your time. I suppose one of the ones we'd love to ask about was Billy Reid. We spoke to a few players that played under Billy Reid and got their opinion on him. But we'd love to know, as an owner, as a CEO, Billy Reid for you, how was he to work with, and what made you want to bring him over to Accies?
Well, when I arrived at Clyde, I was totally unaware of Billy, but the first day I arrived there, and I mean that was as much a mess as the Accies was in, but having seen all the players and all the staff, after about a couple of hours of that, this guy approached me who was Billy, who I'd never seen before, and he says, I want to speak to you about the 13s. So I said, well, who are you? Well, I'm Billy Reid, and I take the 13s. I said, that's good, well, I like youth as well, so we'll have a chat about that. So that's actually how I met Billy, and I still keep in touch with Billy. He could just as easily been the Spurs assistant manager, because they were offered these jobs, but Billy was another one that started, so he was that, and started as the first team coach, and then he became the manager, and obviously when we went to Hamilton, we brought Billy with him. I wouldn't want to say he was one of my boys, but I've got a sort of biggish gang that gets bigger every year, etc. So Billy came, Billy did well. Unbelievably, a Hamilton Accies manager became manager of the year. That just seems quite ridiculous at times when you see these sort of things. So, no, but Billy did great for us. We were on the same page. He respected that he'd had the chance, and Billy was an easy manager to deal with, because we were on the same. He'd come from a pretty level-headed background. He'd played with Queen of the South, he played with Stirling. It wasn't as if he was appearing having played with Real Madrid or something. So, no, Billy was a sound boy.
When you brought Billy in, did you foresee that he was going to take us to the Premier League?
Well, interesting enough, when Alan Maitland was the first manager, and I don't think Alan gets a lot of credit for that, because I think when we took over that season, by the time everything sorted out, we were way behind, and then at the end, we actually did get promoted. I sometimes wonder where all these people that were at Forfar wearing the strips that day. I wonder where they are. You know, because I've still got the video and we still watch the video, and it's packed with Accies fans. And if it could just be like that every week, everything would be so much easier. But anyway, we're not there. We'll need to address that and see where we get back to that. But no, but Billy was really, really good for the club. But like everything else, it's depending when you're going, it's hard when you go in that Premier League to sustain that. And I know as fans, you go to games and you're full of doubts, or we didn't think that was right. And by the way, the directors share them. It's just that we're not allowed to say them. But we're all a team together. But being in that Premier League with the setup we've got is difficult, and you know it's a grind. And to finish what was the heady 7th 1 year, I mean, it's ridiculous. But it's all down to players, and if you can dig out the players, you've got a chance. But having done it, I think Billy was pretty exhausted by the time he left, and he needed a change.
Obviously, when Billy did leave, we know Alex Neil's obviously came in. Was that something which you saw coming, or was it an easy transition?
Was it an easy transition? Well, Alec had arrived because I signed him. I saw that he was being released. He fell out with Carlton Palmer and he was as a player, and that's the reason he come back up, and he lived in Coatbridge. So I got hold of Alec and we signed him as a manager. So Alec would be the first to admit that the Alec Neil that he now is wasn't the original Alec Neil. He needed some, for want of a better word, moulding. He was an angry guy, Alec, and a bit like you guys. Once the family comes, he sees life a different perspective. But Alec was always a natural leader and knew the game. There's boys that play football but don't know how to play football. But Alec was one that knew how to play. So when he turned up, we were fortunate enough to have a fantastic crop. We had two Jameses, obviously, with Eastie. And when they talk about success, how you measure it, we sold 3 players in 11 months to English Premier League. Now, if 1 player goes to English Premier League, it's headline news. Far less 3. So they'd him, Tony Stevenson, who should have been a star, but and still playing Tony. But Tony should have been a star. Swansea wanted to sign him, and he was really, really young. And with James Gibson, who had 2 horrendous knee injuries, but for me was probably the best of the 3. So we had a crop of 5 guys that were effectively English Premier League standard. So once you added your Marcos and boys like that, you had a team. Some you couldn't save, like Brian Carrigan at Harry McLeod, but we really had some tremendous football players. And they with Billy got us there, but it gets harder and harder, and as your good players get picked off, as inevitably it must be, you replace them with other ones who are maybe not as good, and then sometimes you end up gambling because you've got to gamble. And no, it was difficult, but Billy did great, and he did a long innings, and I'm glad he's doing really well now, and he's very happy with Graham Potter. He got the job in Osasuns with Graham Potter, but Graham Jones is best pals with Graham Potter, and that's where that link came. So Big Swaz is also in that gang. They've got their WhatsApp group as well. So I'm privy to circles within circles. So Alec was just a natural to get the job as far as I was concerned, because he had done what I've tried to do ever since. That the guys that have got, I think, managerial ability, and sometimes it's not the ones you think it is. Get them under 16, get them under 17s, under 18s, because as and when they become the manager, they're quite happy to play kids, whereas other people don't want to play kids. It's one of the attractions with John. John Rankin had his under 18 team at Hearts, so he's a firm believer in promoting youth, which I think almost every fair-minded Accies fan would think, well, that's the only chance we've got, because if we're just running about trying to sign guys that were released by Barrow and Furness, I just don't want to be there. That's not what it's about. So fortunately we've got an academy that's producing really top-class players now. But we'll come to COVID later on, I'm sure, about how difficult that's been. But no, Alec was he was just a natural. Alec had authority, and he made them play. And obviously we got the situation where we won at Easter Road and went up. Although 2 weeks before when they get set off at Dumbarton, all these super Accies fans that say he was the greatest thing, Sir Alex, were giving them dogs abuse for getting sent off. I'm sure it was done to you three gentlemen, was it?
No. Eyeing up Brandon there, I think, at the end.
When you obviously, you're saying that Alex Neil was a kind of natural successor, and obviously I can imagine appointing someone in charge of your football club is not something, a decision you take lightly. But was there a point within that season where you thought, Jesus, it really is working now?
I thought pretty early on, because almost immediately Alex says, I want to do this or I want to do that. The way we run the club, and under my tenure, what we'll ever try to do is that we try and produce 22, 24 players, and then the manager, who I've got to say, historically I've had a lot of influence over, but not in the way that I'll be saying, well, play him at left back.
Aye.
So basically we try and get 20, or I try and source 22, 24, what we call players, and recently Alan's been doing the same thing, manfully in difficult circumstances. So, and then whatever team the manager wants to pick for that 22, that's fine, that's how it works. But Alec was fantastic at instilling confidence into people and giving them, I mean, when we were going to Edinburgh, for example, to play Hibs in the playoff, we'd lost 2-0, but he was adamant we win the second time and get through. But on the way he phoned me and they said, just let you know, here's the team. I said, okay, that's good. And then he says, I'm just leaving my cell out, I'm playing Gillespie. I mean, honestly, I nearly passed out my car. But the net effect was that it made the girls feel that confident and that great. And then that was one shock that day. The second shock, seeing him get up to take the first penalty. And he was finished. But he's very blasé about it now. When I speak to him during this, no problem, Ronnie, no problem. But
he scored against us recently, didn't he? He scored a penalty against us.
But I think when you think of the good penalty takers we had in that team, for him to walk up, I just thought, oh no, what's this?
I love that story that Antoine Courier tells, where he's walking up to the spot and he was going to do a Panenka, and then he says, and then I turned around and he saw you and he saw Alex and he went, no. He was, I'm not even gonna try it.
For 3 hour podcast, if we're going to talk about people like Mikel and everybody, I mean, we could be here to Christmas, honestly. But that's Mikel's a great lad. I always in football through all my days. I mean, I started at Knightsford Amateurs in the Division 6, playing Wishaw FPs and things like that. You meet so many people in football, and I always try and keep in good terms with everybody. There's probably 3 I've not got much time for out of thousands, but it's good to see with them, whether they're Mikel and Siggy's been texting me, and which sounds okay, but it's 4 a.m. and he's in Australia.
Australia, of course, aye.
So it's great to see all the old boys, and Mikel's a good one. When I was on holiday last year, he phoned me from Belgium to assure me he was a changed man. I mean, but Alec, just to finish, Alec was magnificent for setting him up, educating them on what was going to happen, and give them so much confidence. And I remember I did speak to him. I think it was maybe after we beat Aberdeen 4-0 or something.
We did indeed.
And I was sitting there saying, Alec, I've been in football years even at that time. I said, I just don't understand what's happening here. I'm going to their team, I'm going to our team. It was just a magic that worked, and you go to Parkhead and you win, and you've got basically somebody like Big Zeus that can maybe run half the speed of me. And you think, well, how's this happening? But it's just a mix, and they had them organised, and they did great, and they thoroughly deserved his moves to Norwich. Albeit killed us, that's for sure.
When that's obviously the contact from Norwich came about, I know we're obviously a club that we're never going to stand in anyone's way to progress himself. How hard news was that when it came, because of the position we were in, and we looked as if we were going that season, we were exceeding expectations every next week.
It was really difficult because the aftershock of it was Alec left, and obviously he asked if Frankie could go. So contractually, I've always got them tied up so as that the club can't really be decimated with somebody coming in and taking physio, sports scientist, a whole bit. So, but it was life-changing for Frankie, because Frankie came in, he was a postie, and there he ended up the second highest Scots manager behind Davy Moyes last season at Preston, which is just incredible. So he had to go. There was 2 other players decided that they thought they should be the next manager, which was really interesting. So they couldn't be, so they had to go. We sold Tony Andre, and then the back of that we got a bad injury to somebody, I forget who it was. And in the midst of that, with the Stephen Henry fracas going on with West Ham, so, and as I'm sure you all know, we had really hellish 6 weeks before it all sort of settled down again. because it was then past the time that we could go out and get a couple of players in. But I was at a reserve game with Alec the night it happened, and we were actually expecting somebody to buy Stephen Henry, and a phone number come up that I didn't recognise. So I said to Alec, "Oh, this will be somebody for Stephen. I'll go and take this." So away I go, and of course it's Norwich permit. Can we get permission to blah blah blah, the usual? So I goes back to Alec and says, "Oh, is that Stephen away?" I says, "No, it's you." And he actually didn't believe me, so we always have a laugh. So he thought he was getting wound up, and he was just waiting for the punchline. If he said, "All right, Alan Norwich, that's for me," right, no bother. But no, it was right enough. But it probably took a couple of hours to persuade him. So next morning he was way down to Norwich. He did great there, and they got them up in the playoffs. I was actually at the final. It was good. It's the only time I've been in the Royal Box, and it's all due to Alec. But no, he did great, obviously, at Norwich. So he thoroughly deserved it, but after he left, it was really, really awkward. Because you always want people that put the feelings of the club at heart, and they're not always just in a line. As I've said, I try to get as many as possible training up, because in the moment, Daz is now in. So if somebody had said to anybody 4 years ago that we managed to produce Daz and Dougie to be managers, get good odds. So the next one, I've got Temps in, I've got Eastie in, and we've just started Chucky as well. So we'll see bits. People would never have thought Alec would have succeeded in the first game, because he was a really angry, difficult guy to manage. And I know you look at it and think, well, was that? But no, he was. He was determined and he wanted to win. So effectively that time we'd really 3 internationals, because playing in our midfield, because he was doing nothing an international. He should have actually been the way he was playing before he became the manager. So you're getting all the secrets tonight, guys.
Well, obviously we'll touch on ranking a bit later, but do you see similarities in him and Alex?
Alec was a difficult guy to begin with, and I'll admit that, and he was a difficult guy. He didn't make friends easily, and he was very, very demanding in the way, not as bad as Roy Keane, but he was that sort of guy. He was never happy. I used to call him Mr. Grumpy, but it was what the other kids needed, because, I mean, if you speak to the two Jameses, they'll say Alec Neil made them. I mean, James MacArthur still captain of the Premier League team in England after how many years, and he'll tell you he didn't know where he stand, didn't know what to do, but Alec was, you stand there, you come in here, you do it. And now I see James doing it with Crystal Palace players, so it's incredible. Ranks is different. Ranks is a very open, pleasant guy that everybody takes to, because he's always smiling. I think he's got the right ideas about the game and the way he wants to play, and he wants to give people a chance and promote them. But in many ways it's too early to say. So we'll see. At the moment, we've been recovering from a horrendous situation at the club and in life in general with COVID. So he's obviously got our full backing. I know managers hate hearing that, but I do tell him that. So and he's got Daz in to help him. So whether that helps, we'll need to see. But,
we'll move on to what you're talking about with COVID and kind of the club financially. I suppose the best place to start is, where is the club financially? You said yourself COVID was devastating for a club our size. So where are we now?
do you want to know if we're surviving? Is that what you're asking me?
I mean, I suppose that's the bottom line. There's a few fans' worries about where we are financially. Do you know what I mean? So what can you tell us?
I think fans generally are the size of our club, they should be worried. Not just at the moment. I mean, we should be continually worried, because if I give you an example, the amount of money that we bring in for our season tickets doesn't pay the academy playing kit. If you look at all other sorts of things that come to having a proper stadium now, when you guys are on your travels, you'll see stadiums that are largely been neglected now. Mm-hmm. I go to places and the gutters are full of grass. The bathroom, the changing rooms are a disgrace. Everything, they're failing safety tests. We always try and keep our place up to A1 Nick. We spent 125 grand upgrading the floodlights last year, and the last time the pitch went down it was nearly 600,000, even changing seats. And because of COVID, we had to take over the running of the hospitality suite and cut out that whole thing. So we've spent a lot of money to try to keep the standards up as best we can. We'll never be able to afford expensive players, but we try to make everything else right. We try to make sure the boys play in Adidas or Nike look the part. We try and make sure it's a modern stadium as best it can be and keep that going. So it's always a struggle, because obviously most people have got the benefit of pick a team 4, 5, 6,000 supporters who in turn raise money. So you've got a hard situation where not only do they pay gate money, they're paying in, I don't know what they pay every month, is it 20 quid or something for 10,000? It becomes a huge amount of money. So that's a difficult for us, and it will always be a difficult for us. Now, I don't have issues with the amount of people that turn up, because obviously you guys are no better than me. You three are individuals in the sense that you support Hamilton Accies. In Central Scotland, it's easy to be a number. I'm 57,326 at Parkhead, or 43,012 at Ibrox. So we need to grow the support. I know we've been saying that for years, but now there's a sort of new beginning in many ways, the way we're approaching it and now attacking it. And I really want to make the club a sort of some like a hipster club, where people come because they are a wee bit different. Now, I know I think football games are becoming more than just supporting the team. I think you've got to make it more of an event. If you turn up and the atmosphere's good, you want to go back. I mean, when we played in the Champions League, the youth thing, the atmosphere in the stadium was fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, people would have come back for that.
Yep.
But you only get that by giving people, not so much success, but giving them effort and things they're proud to be associated with. I intend to oversee a change in that direction. I mean, we've done things the old-fashioned way. We but we encourage schools to come. But I think that's changed. I think I'm 50 years out of date that way. There's a social media world out there now that gets people along. That, you know, someday Wycombe Wanderers get Ronaldo in Wycombe Wanderers, and there's 200 million hits, and then they sell 1,000 shirts because Ronaldo had it. So we've got to set up an actual section of young hipsters. Maybe you guys are. Maybe you.
It's Brandon at the end there. That's the one you're after.
Maybe you guys are still too old. But in all seriousness, there was a club in England that I forget their name, but it's a sort of model. They were only getting 50 people at their game, and 3 boys that were at school, leaving school, they actually bought it for 5,000. I don't know if you know the club.
I've seen it. I can't remember the name of it, but they've had a sort of small meteoric rise.
So they're up to 1,500 people coming from a base of 50. So obviously we're going to start higher than that. But it's really all about getting people to come and building that for the event. And it's not up to me to say what that is, because I'm an old guy. I don't get it. I mean, I don't know if everybody dressed up, having the hamster competition, and everybody, there's 40s walk through the town. I don't know. But what I'm saying, we need to make it like that. We need to make it different, because if we're just relying on a guy coming with his boy, etc., we need to make it that if there's a boy in Hamilton in a scheme and he's not got a lot of money, the first football game he goes to, he's got to be the Accies. Yep. And the day he goes, he's got to take his granny and grandpa with him, and the whole thing, because we've got the seats, obviously. So, but I've been a wee bit busy in the first 3 weeks, so I'm going to get into that. 4 weeks maybe. But that's something we must do. I mean, we can't just go in. We've got a stadium with seats. We must get people to come. And even on Saturday, there was another, I think, 500-600 turned up, and it actually made a difference. I could feel it even at the director's box. But they've got to come back, and they've got to be made to feel part of it. Yeah. And I know there's an element they feel they're excluded in many ways, but that's if that's the way it's going, it's a sadness. We'll need to make sure that doesn't happen, because I think a team only does well, especially a young team, if it gets support. And from the supporters, all I would say is, when you're having bad days, and we always get bad days sometime, you can't get on the kids' back, because that just kills us, period. You know, it really kills us, and we can't afford to lose any kids that aren't getting encouraged. But there again, us playing kids, we had 12 academy players recently, including the bench, and you look at other teams in Scotland, and players being developed in Scotland have vanished. I mean, the only ones that are moving about are the ones that come for our club. The big trend now is, sorry to interrupt you, the big trend now is all the English clubs are trying to buy your kids young. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question on the finance, on a year-to-year finance, we could probably make enough by selling 2 of our best kids away, because they want to sign them now at 15, 16. If you come to our 16s games or 18s games, packed with English scouts, packed. Mm-hmm. They all want to get a Billy Gilmer before they need to pay big money for them, which isn't any use to us, because I want these guys to come through and play for you guys. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, if they go, we're all happy. That's what we're giving them, that launching pad. But that's difficult. So to get back to your question on the money, even prior to COVID, we had the £1 million fraud, which was horrendous. But when we were in the Premier League, because the prize money was so large and the travelling support was good, we could actually make money, because we've got a low sort of wage based cost. But having then got relegated, plus COVID, I mean, it has knocked lumps at us. And then we had the situation at the council, the lease was up, so they left as well. So we just can't possibly run unless we get commercial support from the community. So the business community, I think, appreciate we're trying to do things for young people. We're trying to do things for Through the Blameless Charity, all these things, the addiction programs, whatever they are. We're trying to do that. And we're trying to make it a base for young people, because I don't really think there's a lot to do in the Hamilton district as such. So I see women's football going to be a huge thing, going to be a huge increase in enthusiasm and maybe support as well. But we need to facilitate for that. But if you saw our strip bill for ladies strips, the academies, the under-10s, the first team, the staff, I mean, I could run a football club just in that. But it's got to be done if you're going to have that academy. And there's only 9 academies now. Mm-hmm. People are giving up because they either don't think it's worth it or they just can't be bothered. So when you get clubs like Partick Thistle, Kilmarnock, and recently Livingston, Falkirk gave it up, it's a trend, and I just don't want to go there. I always want to have a proper youth system, because otherwise we don't have anything.
What Ben mentioned about the sort of ethos in which you drove, how did, obviously we're still carrying on with the same trend, how has that sort of made you feel, sort of seeing the conveyor belt of young players that we've pulled through, staff that's went through to sort of bigger jobs? How satisfying has that been for yourself?
People ask me that. It's a bit like having my business. It's done really well. I'm no mad and sort of. I just like to get things done. I just if somebody comes in the team and does well, that by and large that's enough for me. I don't like to sit back and say, oh, we've got this guy and we've got that guy. Because I mean, even in the managerial front, obviously Billy was the first. He did great. Alec was there. Canjo in some quarters was a failure because he only kept us in the Premier League for 4 years. He's now assistant manager at Sunderland. Dougie's the manager. We gave Stan Taylor his first chance. We gave Brian Rice his first chance. Graham Jones is the highest decorated Englishman since 1966, because he was assistant manager of Belgium in the third in the World Cup. So I felt, if you're asking me, Brandon, about that night he got his medal. He was on the plane and he took a photograph and sent it to me. I sort of at that point I go, well, you know, we've helped get him there. We put him through his badges at 17, etc., and gave him a team. And obviously Alec could end up in anything. He's already and Sunderland's a huge club that he may well do. So to get these people, I mean, Joe Savage is director of football Hearts. I gave him his first job as a trainee director of football, or football correspondent if you like, and he used to fit gas meters. So Joe's first full-time job was with me. It was the same with Frankie, as we said. So there's a whole pile of them. The boy that's just away to Swansea for Dundee United, Andy Goldie, we gave him his first job. So Accies people are everywhere, and there's nothing like it anywhere in Scottish football. See, if you look at any Scottish club and say, who have they produced? You might say, oh well, Tierney, McGregor, Billy Gilmer, but it doesn't take long before you run out of people.
Mm-hmm. And just on the players that have left and done very well, that was the first time under your helm in Accies history that we'd ever got big money for any players on any sales at that level. Did that change how you looked at the academy in any way, or did it change how the club was ran, having this or seeing how profitable this academy could be? Did it change any of the...
There's a misconception that people run academies to make money. My view on that is, I say to every player, because I'm very blunt with them all, I like them to be men, because the bottom line is, you're here to get into our first team. Once you're into our first team, it's up to you. If somebody comes to you and they want to write the cheque, of course you go. My line is, I'll drive you to the station myself, because it's the only time in football everybody's happy. The buying club's got their player, we've had a cheque, hopefully. The player's happy, he's changed his life, he's going to be a millionaire, and the agent's happy. So it's the only time 4 people are happy. Usually we're at each other's throats, one way or the other. But that's the time. But that can only come through their hard work. People don't buy players because they get kidded on and get reports and in the press. They buy them because they go and they look at them and they see them and they want to buy them. So if we can, it's a great benefit if somebody does move. Obviously it is, but that's not the main thing's to get them to our first team, and then whatever happens. Because as we all know, you get Michael Devlin, the outstanding player, got him in, he released with Celtic, got him in, Michael did great, goes to Aberdeen, he's been injured ever since. Plays for Scotland, the same with Brophy, play for Scotland. Players come to us, play for Scotland. We've got 3 in the under-17 squad, should be 6, but anyway, that's up to them. So we progress that way and it makes us different. But to answer the question, does it make me proud? No, not particularly. I just want to do it right.
There are some players who have left Accies that fans thought we were going to get big money for, and it ended up not being the case, supposedly. So, like Lewis Ferguson, Greg Docherty, and it looked like Jamie Hamilton was going to be one of them, but obviously that's changed situations now.
But when you say moved, there's always a reduction because they're coming for Hamilton Accies in many ways. The way it is, that if we've got a player that we think's, well, let's see me, if I think there's a player that's outstanding, sometimes it's a case of selling them for a reasonable fee with a sell-on, because the sell-ons really are what count. So if, for example, Lewis Ferguson goes to Bologna, is it Bologna?
Yeah.
Goes to Bologna, comes back, the same as the boy who went to Brentford. We've got a percentage of that sell-on. So if it's that sort of big money, that makes all the difference. The reason we benefit so much of the two Jameses is I had built-in clauses. I even had the built-in clause that either of them reached the FA Cup final, we get 250 grand. So I was at the semi-final in a 500 grand game. but fortunately it was Millwall they were playing. So, and at the time when you're doing it, if they want the players, they'll put in things that they think, because Wigan never thought they'd win the FA Cup. So they're quite happy to put it in. Because if they win the FA Cup, they're quite happy anyway. So these things you've got to be clever or realistic, but in fairness, it's how they evolve. So Greg Docherty, I thought actually was the right fee we got for Greg, because I was fighting with them for about 3 weeks on it. Plus he also had a sell-on, so if Greg had gone on and been a success, we would have benefited that. And the way the transfer fees are now in England, you only need to have one of them, and that would pay your academy maybe 3 years, something like that. But you can't put the kettle on for it, as they say.
And people like Greg Docherty, who went to the club he supported, he was obviously a Rangers fan. Do you ever find it harder to convince those players to stay at Accies? So like if a Rangers comes in, I can imagine that turns their head pretty quickly.
In fairness to all the boys, I've always, as I say, been very open with them, and we have this policy, if anybody asks about them or whatever, we always tell the players. Lots of other clubs try and hush it up or don't tell them, but word does get out. But I think it's their career. I always say to myself, if it was my son, how would I feel? I find boys really refreshing and really honest to deal with. As long as you treat them like men, which was the first thing when I come back, I said, I'm going to treat you like men now. And the reality is, they were all told, every single one of them, you're only here to get somebody better. Now, within football, people go, well, you can't say that, pure wee pampered darlings. But it is the truth, because they would never be in that dressing room unless we get rid of somebody else to let them play. So I said that to Ryan Fulton. I says, Ryan, you're in here now. What happened to the guy that you took his place? He says, well, he's not here now anymore. I says, I know, and you'll just be here to get somebody else on it. He says, I know, that's right. And it's the same with the manager. It's better let's say that to John, right enough. But I know I used to always say to the boys, well, if I meet somebody at the petrol station that's better than Billy Reid's off. But it's actually the truth.
And see, when we were in the Premiership, a criticism fans had was that we never seemed to push past staving off relegation. One of the things,
some criticism, eh?
One of the things we mentioned was we mentioned a few times, and we've spoke about it quite a lot, is the phrase lack of ambition. Now, how do you see that criticism being behind the success of being in the Premiership? How do you see that?
There's nobody more ambitious than us for wanting to do things, but somewhere along the line there's got to be some realism here. I mean, we would have pushed on as much as we could. If you want to give me a Hearts or a Hibs or an Aberdeen, I mean, I'll take them to a different level for where we attend. I don't have any doubt of that, the way I do things. But in reality, people were in the game, were absolutely amazed we were there year after year after year after year, because they were signing big cheques for people. I was finding Alex Gojic. I found Alex Gojic unemployed in a flat in Coventry. I found Mikel Miller, Division 9 in England, just been resold them. Hakeem, there's a whole list of them. So that's what we've got to do. Some of them should have. I mean, Skondras was really actually a top player that played in the Europa League. I think Big Marius should have left us for big money. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. So we were doing these things and we were competing well as best we could. But you're competing with people. They've got budgets 20 times what we've got. And I thought we were top of the Premier League for 4 weeks. If that's not been ambitious, I can't take it much further than that, really. So people may say that may be fashionable. If people really think that, well, why don't they come and do my job and show me how I should do it? One of the things that I changed at Hamilton, I look back now, I think was a mistake on my part. When I was at Clyde, when I arrived at Clyde were the same position as Hamilton. We were nearly relegated. They'd been paying money left, right and centre for guys. So that was the time, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but I took all the juniors for the various football clubs, took them to Clyde. They had a great rapport with the fans because we were in part-time. Everybody got £50 a week. The fans related to them. They were all normal working guys, but they tried like bears. And the Clyde fans got behind it, and I had a real open thing. So I used to have this thing, when I drove up on a Saturday, if somebody really wanted to ask anybody at the club, they stopped me in the car park. It took me about an hour to get the front door. But it galvanised the club, and when we went to away games, our support was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, never criticism, everybody in it for the boys, and then we won League One, and then we were beating Hamilton, Partick Thistle, which is a big thing for them. But because of what I did over that 2.5 years is the sort of the chief bully, as they used to say, the bully wee, you get sucked into things like you were going to hospices, you were going to funerals because of your position at Clyde. You were Ronnie, could you maybe go and see my dad? He's not well, would you? And after 2 years, as well as running your business, running the football club, it drains you because you never ever, once you go to one funeral for a fan, or once you go and see somebody that's not well in the hospital, you can't say to the next one, or can't make it. You just can't, so I think it was four Saturday nights in a row I was in different hospices, and I'm just thinking, this is killing me, by the way, So when I went to Hamilton, I thought, I'm going to keep my distance. I'll do everything I can football-wise, but I can't get all sucked in back into all that again. So, and I don't mean to come across as standoffish, but that was really why I didn't come in and say, look, let's all get together, guys, and we're all here together, because you just couldn't keep it up. It was emotionally a killer. I was a killer if you're doing it right. So maybe that engagement from our part could have been better at the beginning, but you can only do so much, really, because after all, this is my part-time hobby. I never get a penny. Well, I lose hundreds of thousands of pounds doing it, or it's invested apparently. It's hundreds of thousands of pounds, and that's what you do. If you love football and you're into football, you do it. But there's only so much you can do, because I've got a business with 300 people. I've got to pay attention. But fortunately, when you've been doing it since you were 18, you can, when I had nights with amateurs, we had 5 teams, so every Friday night they're all phoning me, what time we meeting, what boots are we wearing, or, have you phoned the referee, have we got nets, all that stuff. You end up doing it automatic. So where we are now is actually luxury.
We'd be interested to ask you about stepping away from Hamilton Accies that you did fairly recently. It's been reported that the Partick Thistle game at home, the 6-1 defeat, that was your final game at the club before you left. What was the point that you realised you wanted to step away? Now, was it a case of you were just retiring? Do you've done your duty, you've got the club to a good place, and now it's time to step away, or was there something that triggered that was a catalyst?
Are you talking about the idiot with shouting at directors?
That's been reported, was that fans was a factor in you stepping away from the club.
Aye. Well, my friends have spoken to me that, and they think it's incredulous that somebody shouting at me would make me get up and walk out of the stadium and no deal with the situation. You're sitting there as a chairman, and I've just come back from my holidays. We've come off COVID, the effect of COVID, and it's been a lot worse in families, and for these people that have lost people, I'm really sorry for them, and I hope we can all get better and repair society, which I think will be difficult. So there's people in much bigger problems than me through COVID, but in the football stadium, especially with so many young people, it was unbelievably difficult. And over that period, one of the strengths, if you like, at Hamilton Accies is I find players. I've got a wide circular, I've had amateurs, juniors, juveniles, England, everywhere, that tell us about players. And I'm like Lee, the chief scout now. We like hunt them down. That's, if you ask me what's the buzz is finding a Mikel Miller. And people say, where was he? Division 10. What? That sort of thing. That's Ryan Fulton's another one. 7th choice at Liverpool, no playing because he's too fat. You look at him now, he's like a Greek god. So these things are the buzz. But that had followed up. We'd been in holiday, we'd just come back that night. It was a bad night. We've had bad nights before. that wasn't it. But there's a guy shouting that, but he's shouting at the other guys that are all working hard, in my view. And see, if you're a fan, you're all disappointed. We get that. But don't shout at people that are knocking their pan in for nothing, trying to make your club better. Let's all be unified, because you've no idea the effect it has, a word of encouragement to people. Because you talk about my car when I drove up the night, right? And I'm fortunate enough to everything I need in sort of practical terms or luxury, whatever you want to call it. But that doesn't matter compared to somebody saying, Ronnie, you did great tonight, thanks for that.
What's those keys? A Citroen C3, is it?
So I'm a but that's that's the things that people must make a difference. Do you know what I mean? They just come up and say, well, for the bad night, guys, but we go again tomorrow. We're Hamilton Accies or whatever it is. Not so much me, but for other people, a word of encouragement, honestly, it goes miles.
I think, like I say, it goes without saying that there's ways to deal with emotions when it comes to things like that, and like I say, it's unacceptable to kind of target people or be that way. But at the same time, not try to justify these actions, but when it comes to your club as well, it can just cut deep differently when it comes to bad nights like that. And I think everybody, like you say, it would be different if we're 6-0 up and things like that. It's one of those things where it comes to your club, the goods and the bads, it's just totally different, and it hits different. Like I say, it doesn't support that kind of action to pick out an individual like yourself and shout that way.
It wasn't picking at me, it was aimed at the directors. I'm just back my holidays, 10 minutes to go, I'm off. I just think I don't need to be here because Alan's chairman of the first team thing. I don't need to be here and listen to the guy I don't need to listen to. What's the alternative? Alternative? I'll tell you what the alternative is. If it happens in a pub, what's the alternative? I'm sitting representing Hamilton Accies, and I'm sitting there, somebody saying something I don't like. Well, I can't do anything about it. The guy beside me can't do anything about it. Maybe the guy that I brought along as a sponsor says, why come here? And if you want to expand on that, when I was thinking about buying Hamilton Accies, I went to Wraith Rovers again when the abuse that Jim Watson got was ridiculous. And that almost made me go, why do I want to be here? Irrespective of what you think of Jim Watson, by the way, that's no man bag, I wasn't there before. But the things that were shouted at that man that day and his wife were just absolutely disgusting. So everybody's disappointed. You're saying, the bad shirts and everything else. But why would people like me do it then, if we're going to get that reaction?
And when you left, you handed the reins over to Colin McGowan.
Sorry, I just finished that.
Of course.
That also coincided with, I was 70, right? And I've been doing this since I was 18, running football clubs. 8 months off when I was in between Clyde and Hamilton. That's full on all that time. So if there's obviously going to be a time when you stop, because I've seen clubs that there's the old guy, they say, he used to be really smart, he was turned down, he was, and I don't want to be that guy, so I think, well, it's fine, Alan's a really sound guy, this is the time to go. But what really made it easy for me was, for 2 years I couldn't go to junior games, I couldn't find players, I couldn't find a Mark McLaughlin, a Stevie Convery, couldn't dig somebody out and nobody told it, because you weren't allowed to go to the games. Also, when I left, it would have been 2 years since I was in the dressing room. The last time I was in the dressing room, and I know I've got an unusual management style because I get in amongst them. The boys say, well, if Ronnie's no slagging you, you're in problem, because then he's going to get rid of you. So there's an element of truth in that. But boys are young, they need interaction. So we beat Rangers on a Wednesday night. I was in the dressing room there. We won on Saturday against Kilmarnock. We were doing great because all of a sudden we had 8 players back for injury. We turned the corner, we were flying. So with COVID hit, they shut us down. So I was 2 years between that and getting back into the dressing room there. And I then don't have any interaction. And we played a game last season, the last game of the season. I've got a room that take people into. Darian and Dougie been in a few times. But anyway, that was the first time in 2 years I'd been there, not having that thing. So we played that game. There was one player that I'd had in the room, and that was Ryan Fulton, to give him a new contract. Ryan's a lovely boy. He wouldn't get any bother. You're listening, Ryan. So, but that connection to your boys, if you like, was gone, because we'd signed other people, literally walked past me in the car park. Didn't know me, I didn't know them. So it's easier at that point to say, this is a good time to stop. Alan's a sound guy. I've not seen the guys for 2 years. The Ziggies are away. Whoever had gone in that period.
Always time to bring Ziggy back.
Ziggy's, I'll send you Ziggy's wedding video. He knew I wanted to see it and sent it to me. So I had to watch it all just to prove I'd watched it. No, he's applying for citizenship.
Is he? Wow.
So he's anyway, he's married with a lovely kid who I have to tell everybody he's called Leo because he sent me a text last night.
Well, congrats.
Yes, congrats, absolutely.
No doubt it'll be on his Twitter. I can't believe that he's got 237 followers. I just can't believe that figure. He'll be on the phone once he hears this, by the way. So, but that was the sort of relationship. So once you didn't have that with the guys,
so that's when you thought
it was a good time. It was a good time. That just coincided with this guy saying, you watching this, do something about it. And we're trying to do something about it, So, and people do get emotions about football. All I'm saying is, it doesn't help your club. It's the opposite thing of what you're doing. Because I could maybe Colin's brought a sponsor along that's going to put a lot of money in the club. And he's sitting there thinking, well, I thought we were unified. What's all this about? By the way, we sit there and we say, what are we playing this for? 4-3-3. What are we doing this for? Look at him, he's a clown. But amongst ourselves, never in front of the opposition or something, but you back everybody. But, we'd sit there non-stop and say, because we're all experts. Because Alan's been a manager, I've been a manager, Les has been a manager, Dave McKinnon's been a manager. So we're all experts. We're probably the most knowledgeable board, according to the rest of them anyway.
And when you did leave, you mentioned Colin McGowan there. You handed the reins over to Colin. What made him the chosen custodian? Was he been obviously there that long? He was kind of already running things, I suppose.
The custodian is we were always 50-50 in it. We were 50-50 ownership. Sorry, it wasn't entirely, but it was almost 50-50. There was a few sort of small percentage of shares here and there. So it was always 50-50. Colin's a local guy, and it mystifies me people's opinion of Colin. I know he's brusque and he can be difficult, for want of a better word, but he acts with Christian principles. To my view, the people he helps, it's never seen. He's fantastic at that. He'll try and help somebody now. I accept that's maybe doesn't sit well with being the face of a football club. I get that. He lives locally. He's put the money into it. He's got half. So it's either if we both leave, we need to find somebody else to buy the whole thing, which is difficult because nobody wants to buy a club like Hamilton Accies with all the overheads, and they look at the support and they think, well, this can only go one way. And people still maintain it can only go one way, but we try and make sure it doesn't. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
So what was, obviously, you said you felt the time was right to sort of move on then. What was the factor that made you want to come back?
You said want to or need to. Definition. Well, obviously, Alan works for me. Alan's my MD, and when I'm at the work, it's easy for me to come in the stadium because it's my business and I go. Alan being the MD and being the chairman, I need to let him away for work more to go and do the things. So eventually, it was becoming more and more demanding, and it was becoming an awful lot for Colin and Alan, because things that I would maybe do naturally, they had never had the experience before. And inevitably, if Alan couldn't go out for some reason, Colin, as being the only person being there, may have to step in to try and do whatever that was. And then you get him involved with football when he honestly doesn't want to be involved in football. He just wants to say, Ronnie, you're doing the football, I can go and try raise money or do my charity work or something. So in many ways he's misunderstood, but he wants the best for the club. He's fanatical about the academy and the kids and giving kids a chance. And we think there's going to be a holocaust coming after COVID, and as far as communities and relationships. And I see it in some of the players. Some of the players aren't the same guys that were 2 years ago. And you probably know people whose characters have changed because they've been in the house for 18 months. And this is how I want to, if we can make a place a happy, jolly, young, vibrant, enthusiastic place, because I don't see much anywhere else. And it's just going to get worse in my view.
And with it being back at the club, it's easy with how fast the footballing world evolves for a team like Hamilton to perhaps be overwhelmed by all these changes that are expected of football clubs. You talked about social media and all that being a big part of stuff like that. What steps do you think Accies still need to take or are taking to keep up with the ever-evolving football world? We get a few examples about like the retail. You've introduced online ticketing this season as well, which is a big positive. So what other steps do you think Accies still need to take to...
I think we need to come into the modern world in this, because I was actually speaking to Colin today, it doesn't matter what him and I think. It's a good idea to either get wizzy, for want of a better word, or drag people in. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters what guys your age think, because you're the ones that are now facing out with social media. And I know the power of social media, as I say, through my business, and we're an environmental company and sustainability, and we're followed all over the world for what we do. So I get that, but we're not the guys, A, to come up with ideas, and B, to run it. So I will form a sort of subcommittee with these people, listen to our ideas and back their ideas, because I like to think my success is based in delegation. I'm a hell of a guy for delegation, not because I think this or that. I just look at my desk in the morning and I think, what can I give to Alan? And then Alan's job is, what can he give to his assistant, and so it all comes down.
Yeah.
Other places just say, I'll do this, I'll do that, and they go nowhere. So you all have a talent, and you're putting your head in the noose here for making it different and a fun place to be. And Hipster pretty covers it pretty well. Being cool with being different. But what that is, I don't know. But if you came to me with lots and lots of suggestions, there may well be some I could say, well, I can't do this for that. But I would like to back you as best I could, whoever that would be. So whoever's listening to this, under your stewardship, by all means, gather up. If there's 5 or 6 guys that want to really have a go at this, I'm all for it, and I'll back you all the way, because that's, compared to so many other things, that's easy. That is an easy thing to do, and we've got I don't think it's taken me long to sort things out since I come back. There was there's lots of good people there, but through COVID and not having the same leadership, because you couldn't have leadership. I mean, it's horrendous, being able to talk to your employees, and the idea I've not been in the dressing room for 2 years is just incredible. So you lose these things, but I think the club's in a really good place. Obviously, I'm going to be sponsoring the club. We'll get ourselves back in the financial keel. We might not be in a financial level playing a year from now, but we can only do what we can just now. So the club is financially secure as we stand just now. But and also think that, like everybody, we're getting so much money in for commercial support that, like what we're doing as regards saving kids that the parents are drug abusers or problems with drinking drugs or suicide, self-harm, whatever it is. There are people giving us money that they wouldn't give if we were a football club. They're really giving it because they like what we're doing in the community and they accept that. Whereas if we said, look, we'll stick a banner up and give us 5,000 quid, no interested. So we've got to use them in every way we can and run as many events as we can. Inverness made half their budget because they bought a Botticelli playing there. Half their budget in one night of concert. So I'm not saying you can replicate that, but you've got to try. Do you know what I mean? Like Falkirk sell out their stadium twice a year. Kilmarnock, when Dave McKinn was there, they had Elton John there. So it's all our stadium. It's no Colin McGowan stadium and he's pocketing the money, because we've got name it. Everything goes into the football club. So if we could end up having concerts that generate, if there was even a medium-sized band came and we sold maybe 7,000 or 8,000, that would be more than all the gate money we took in all season. So we should all be striving for that, and that in turn makes Hamilton a better place with a wee bit of buzz about it. And everywhere I see other people just sliding away, giving up. I don't want to be that. I know that you enthusiastic young wannabes are going to involve it. Do you know what I mean? You'll know a guy that's got great ideas for this, and he's just dying to do it like the guys. And well, I've got a great idea, but nobody's listening because I'm a kid of 19 and I've got a daft haircut. It doesn't matter.
One of the things that we've pointed out, and it was David that pointed out, you coming back, was as soon as you came back, it seems as if wheels were in motion. Fans maybe saw from the outside that there was a little bit of stagnation for a period of time, and that could be down to many things, but as soon as you came back, stuff seemed to be happening. Players started to be coming in, there started to be more kind of positivity around the club since you came back. What have you done since you came back? What did you have to do coming back into? Did you have to make any wholesale changes almost, or anything like that behind the scenes?
I think just to add on to the way the question's asked as well, was it a case of I would like to come back, or no, I need to come back here?
I mean, Alan's been with me a long time. He first came and played for me when he was 15 the night, so we've never had him since. He was my manager, Mary Hill, manager at Clyde, etc., and Hamilton. So I could see you've had Alan, and he's a straight up and down guy. He's the chairman you would want for your football club. But Alan's very good at lots of things, many things. Alan's not a wide guy. I'm a wide guy for the scheme. I know the script, to make it dead simple. I know the script. Colin's doing the very best he can, but sometimes he doesn't have a strategic plan to follow, because that's not his game, and we end up getting situations because everybody's trying to help, maybe one person's doing so. There was an element of confusion, but it was, and people were getting tired because we're running Hamilton Accies hand to mouth. We weren't doing well. Everybody expects when you go into the championship you'll do well. The real football people know it's not that easy, and people are disappointed. Then coming off the back of COVID and everything else, injuries, etc., it was really, really difficult. So obviously I hadn't been at a game since that Thistle game. In the 9 months I was away in that part, the only game I went to Yoker, because we had the Bull on loan there, so I went down to see him, and I can honestly say I didn't miss the senior football. Maybe I really just did need a break after 50 years, really. Because, as I say to the guys, it's not just the football. The football's great, but if you're going away to Ross County and you maybe go up the Friday night or something, then you're driving down the Dart on Saturday, and then Sunday you might go to an academy game, then you're back at your desk on the Monday. It's people maybe don't think that's a hard shift, but you've been doing that 40 years up and doing it is a hard shift. And if I can just say to you about what you were saying about fans got upset and as if we don't. There was a game at Dingwall and I was supposedly trying to take a back seat and travelling less, because Alan said, that's no problem. Nobody else could go. I went to Dingwall. I can't just remember when it was, right? We go to Dingwall. We had a weak team, but we did really, really well. And we were winning 1-0, and then Dougie missed one at the back post and a goal to the left. Now, I'm the only guy that's travelled for various reasons. I think Scott was there. Other directors were doing various things. So Muggins here drives up in the pish and rain to see the game. We're sitting there, we've got a weak team. Dougie hits the post, with about 10 minutes to go. They score, but we're hanging on, and I'm thinking, that's fine. I'm looking at my watch, 5 minutes past. Right, let's just beat it, because we had parked up the town. Because then I've got to drive 4 hours in the pouring rain with my missus down the road with no radio reception. It's the same as all you guys. So that's fine. I'm walking up, and I'm looking at my watch. I'm thinking, that's no bother. It's 10 minutes over that. I put my hand in my door handle, and there's a rower. They score the last kick of the ball. So I'm standing there, I'm pissing wet. I'm sick. I've travelled all that way. I have to get down that motorway all the way. I know she's going to fall asleep. And I'm driving into darkness with nothing to listen to, thinking about a goal I've not seen. So don't tell me, David. Don't tell me you guys suffer. Because then you've got to go on the Monday, and whilst you want to go in and shout and scream at people, you've got to be, come on boys, ready to go again. There's no sense being negative. Whereas all you want to do is blutter the guy that flogged the goal.
To be fair, the point that you make is, it is easy to forget the user also invested as much as we are, because like you said earlier, when you're talking about what they fill the stands, nobody wants to see that more than us as well. So it is a case of we all got to be on board and we all want the same things as well. So I'm sure there were some strong words when that goal went in.
No, it was just deflating. But I mean, the people, I mean, last week past Friday, the under-18s have started really well, and lots of really good football players. It was up at Murray Park. I go to so many games. Anyway, we beat Rangers up at Murray Park. They've bought their midfield. We've got a wee guy for Postle running about. It's great. The boys win. Great victory. The next game they go to Hibs, who were the champions. So I thought, that's fine. What I'll do is I'll skip off for work early Friday and go and watch it. So it's in Trinent, Hibs training ground. It takes me 2.5 hours to get there. 2.5 hours. We come back, we take the wrong turn, and we end up in Edinburgh in the middle of a festival. Takes me 2.5 hours to get back. So normally you go to a youth game, you jump in the car, there's no traffic, you zoom out, you see it just like coming to Hamilton, zoom back, you're away. I'm thinking 5 hours of travel to watch an under-18 game. That's my life. That's what we do. So when you ask about why you come back, I really think that my two friends in college who put so much into it, I think they needed a bit of help. I thought I could do that help. I didn't think it was exactly done. I knew I could fix what needed fixed, because from afar I knew this was happening, that was happening. So it was really something that had to be done. We can't waste what happened before, especially if the academy was starting to suffer. Because we can't let that go.
And Ben's obviously mentioned it From all the fans' point of view, it does definitely seem like the wheels have certainly went in motion since you've came back. One of the things, obviously, a couple of days ago was Daryl's and Atis came in. How much of a say in that did you have?
Well, on that one, it was obviously.
Or how much did your wallet have a say in that?
I mean, it's not a case that the money goes into a central fund as such, and whatever it costs is there to get players out of contract, because that's sadly what happens sometimes. They need to move on, or somebody comes in. But he was one that John had worked with before, and John was keen on him. So it's always a case of, we all throw things about who have you got, and he was saying, well, I like that boy at Race Rovers, I would like to sign him. So you've always got to try and back your manager. If I thought he wasn't a very good player, we wouldn't be having him. But in effect, over the last 2 years, I haven't seen much of him. Early days youth thing. So John wants to get him in, and it makes us better, and it is a changeover again. Well, that's fine. But he sort of fits the profile. Hungry guy, young, and the manager likes his personality, so that was fine. So wherever we can get them in. Saturday was the first time I'd seen our centre forward. I was pleased with him. I thought
Jean-Pierre T.
I got GP for me. Sometimes I struggle to remember all the names, especially when you've got 8 teams. I was there at Woodside last night, and the guy come up to me. Hello, Ronnie, how's it going? Oh, it's good to see you here. I says, oh, good. How do you think my boys doing? And you're looking at them, it's under 14. Who's your boy? I don't even get a set of team lines. So, but you just got to know their names, etc. So, no, it was right. I wouldn't have felt right not coming back to help them, because it is difficult times financially and everything else, because COVID affected us more than any club in Scotland, because what happened was, and you guys should know, every club out with the Premier League get granted 500 grand. So everybody in the Championship get a cheque out the blue for 500 grand. We get no grant. To play in the Premier League, we had to meet the testing criteria that everybody had to do, and travel on the buses as per protocol. We spent another 380 grand to play in the Premier League. So when it comes to this season, let's say we play a team like Arbroath, they're effectively 880 grand better off than us, as is every team in the league. We get a loan to get through the season, and then we've got to repay the loan. So they come back and say, the authorities, but you'll be back in the Premier League. So they obviously don't know much about Hamilton Accies, right? You'll be back in the Premier League soon. And that way. But what's happened, of course, is Kilmarnock were in the exact same position as us. They're back in the Premier League, and that's fine, and they're getting their gates and their money and everything else. We're the mugs that are left behind. We never get the grant, we get handy with that, and we have to spend all this money to make the league viable. So
now that you are back, and you've mentioned about they're saying that they don't think, they've said that you'll be back in the Premier League soon enough. Is that the goal?
Of course it's a goal. I mean, there's only 2 ways we can prosper. We can either get up and get into the Premier League, or we have some boy wonder that we sell for a lot of money. But we're very viable if we get in the Premier League, because the cash distribution, players, the bigger clubs will think, well, that's not that much. It's a hell of a lot of money to us, and that makes it, plus the crowds coming, the commercial aspects, the hospitality, because in the Premier League every week the hospitality is full, which is another cash stream through business. So that's obviously, I mean, it's I just want to win at everything. I mean, if I had to race shoot my motor now, I'd be having a go at it. No, I wouldn't win unless I tripped you up. But it's just I'm just competitive. I'm just an aggressive, competitive person.
The reason I was asking about going back to the Premier League is because some of the fans' point of view online for your reason to come back was that the standard of this championship this season isn't particularly the best as what is compared to recent years, and you've saw an opportunity. It's been your baby for 20 years, and you've took the team to heights which they've never been before, and you feel that you've got one last rodeo getting us back to that.
Well, before I become that old odor again, that Ronnie MacDonald used to be good until the last season when he was hopeless and we got rid of him. No, I just think I think it's a good. I mean, I'm really, really pleased with the staff now. The way it's sorted. I can honestly say, if the club was maybe the way it should have been before, after 3 or 4 weeks, I'm happy I've got everything sorted. I know that's a huge statement, and my missus is looking at me and saying, how can that be? Because normally, you're talking about Billy Reid. I mean, Billy Reid used to be on the phone to me every night, because that was just Billy's way of developing and everything else, and what about this, what about that, what about that, and she thought it would be like Billy again. It couldn't be like Billy again, honestly. It just your head would melt if it was Billy again. But that was all great, and it was, to beat us all better, and it was all, people want guidance or advice, whatever you want to call it. That was all great work. But no, I think the potential there is how quick you don't know how quick the team gels or how good it's going to be to get on to all this football chat. We'll just need to do the best we can that way. But one thing's for certain, the people that are playing just now will know will be there at the end of the season. I don't have any idea who they are in particular, but we've a hell of a lot of good players injured just now, which sometimes you've just got to suck it up. But the first team's always the last thing to get fixed up. You've got to be happy with the physios, the sports science, whatever it is. So I can say I'm happy. There's no problems at our football club, and I don't think there's another club in Scotland could say that. Behind the scenes, I'm talking about with other organisation, and I didn't think actually we could get it sorted. But I'll be brutally honest, you either do things my way, you'll not be here. They've all been told. So some have left.
So that's what I was going to say. So is that changes you've made to make the club behind the scenes in the correct place?
Well, I think so, because that's what I've put in place, and everybody goes with it, because if they don't go for it, I'll just get rid of them. I mean, it's dead simple. You know, I ask you to do this, you do it, we're all happy. I think it'll make us better. If it doesn't, well, it's on me. I want young kids to play. I want everybody, just the same as the football club and the fans, I want everybody happy, enthusiastic. If there's anybody there not doing that or doesn't want to be in the team, well, they'll not be in their own boat, they just get thrown overboard. There's always players coming around the corner. And I know it's no fashionable to talk about players, don't upset him. I don't care. Because you can't let somebody away with something that the other 11 aren't allowed to do. You should always think, how does this affect that group, what he's doing? And if you're letting them down by no dealing with him, it's dead simple. So believe me, they all know I'll deal with them.
Yeah, it's the kind of view that I think the fans, the majority feel we were missing since you've left, though, that we will tolerate these kind of things. Now, obviously, we've got no knowledge. We don't know what happens behind the scenes, but that's definitely what the impression, that's what fans think is now happening. Now that you're back, that there is someone that won't tolerate that and will make the changes. So, I mean, it's something that you want to see.
I'd like to do it. I mean, it's not I don't mean there was a whole lot of things, but I wasn't a happy camp, and people weren't all pulling in the same direction. It's like, if I ask you what's your problem with your work, or it's his fault, and if I ask him, it's your, you know what I mean? It's, so it's dead simple. We're all in it together. This is the setup. You'll do this, you'll do that, and we'll all just do that. And if you do that, I mean, generally people just want guidance. What's my job, boss? Do that. So it's my job to give John and Darian and Potsy, who's a rock, the facilities that they just get the balls out, get the cones out, and go and try and produce the team, work on it without having to worry about a myriad of things, of which COVID was a real factor, you know, on Brian and on Stan. I mean, horrendous. I mean, just horrendous. It's just, and when you get so many young players, I mean, how can you send two players that are potential stars with Scotland, and they're playing in a game when the referee stops the game because the Scotland managers get COVID, and then they all come up the road, and then we can't play them for 3 weeks, and then when they come back they're injured, and then one of them gets COVID again. I mean, to try and plan a back four, I mean, hopeless. And I know it happened to lots of other clubs, but it really affected us.
You mentioned about players being around the corner. If that one player's not right, is there
around the corner?
Yes. So is there?
Nobody's around the corner, Brandon. They're off.
So on that note, is there anyone you could perhaps give us a line? Should we expect more players to be coming in?
We've actually, Alan and I were looking at this tonight. As I say, we're bringing the guy in from Newcastle, whose name I gave you. I'm sorry, I've no masterminded it. That's Sir Graham Jones. We're getting him on loan. The answer to that is we won't be. If we're short of bodies, the boys in the under-18 team will be coming up, because I think we're the best under-18 team.
We've been talking about it in the podcast. They've been doing really well recently.
They've been doing
the
really
18s.
well, yep. But as I was saying to him, it's all very well going to Rangers to win, going to Hibs to win. Don't get beat by poor Hearts team and then come out and pump Aberdeen 6-2. You know, we're here to win. To answer the question, I mean, we don't want to be pretty. Well, nobody's going to be pretty with me. We're there to win, and we had a reputation. It used to be when they come off the bus, they went, "Oh, we're playing Hamilton Accies today." We don't want that, and we lost that over 2 seasons. There's no doubt about that. We became easy to play against, and it's Hamilton Accies today. I mean, John Rankin said, he says, "I hate to come in here. I used to come off that bus and I'd see Darian or whoever it was, Marios or Doogie or think, oh no." In many ways, that comes from the top because I'm aggressive. I've told them we're here to. Well, I better not say what we're here to do. We're here to give 100% for everybody, and if you get 100%, that's all anybody can get anybody.
And now you're back. Now that you're back, what's your message to the fans that have obviously they've been glad to see you coming back, and what do you want from the fans going forward?
Well, basically what we've been saying earlier, I would just like if we can create this enthusiasm for it. I mean, there's 101 things we can do to make it better, and you know, people are going to be, you know, they're going to be in pretty dire straits this winter, I think, you know, financially, and even if there's an older guy in the house or his pals, if they can just walk down and watch a youth game in the afternoon, it's, I don't say it breaks the monotony, do you know what I mean? It's Hamilton's no a sort of mecca entertainment, and whatever your entertainment is, it costs you money anyway, doesn't it? So we really want to try and help that, but I think that's up to you guys to come with ideas. I'll be receptive of these ideas, but I don't know what they are.
And we'll just, I think, wrap up there. We'll just ask you one more time, sorry. If you had a message to go out to the fans, we'll obviously include this in the podcast, what would your message be for the season ahead?
Well, for the season ahead, obviously, we want to do well, but, you know, we've no preordained right to do well. What I can say is everybody will working really hard behind the scenes and players to try and make that happen. I'll just not stand for any perceived lack of effort. I mean, to me, it's just, I can't even begin to think that anybody would think, well, they're not trying, but we'll get back to being aggressive. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'd be aggressive, try to win the toss. I mean, I'm really a very aggressive person, and I tell them, that's what I want you to be, and you've got to be that. But as far as the fans is, I'd really like them to be proud of their team, and I think that's the thing that's missing. You were talking about me being proud. I think Hamilton people, you know, are missing being proud of, let's say, it's the academy and the work we do in the community and what we have achieved by producing all these managers, all these players. Because, well, when you go around the country and you're talking to other people, they're honestly gobsmacked at what we do. And we're here saying, oh, well, that was not very good. But on the wider, but that again is a thing for more people to be proud of and think, I'd like to be part of that. I mean, even with physios, they're ending up doing, you know, Victoria, who was she's a head lecturer now in the physio down there. She was the head of the Arsenal Academy. And there's success stories everywhere, and we should celebrate that, but we don't. And maybe that's our fault for not giving you guys more airtime or saying it. But I mean, it's you know, Hearts is director of football. You know, come out of our youth, you know, scouting system, but we don't sing enough about it, and it's something really to be proud of. So I would like to see it in a word. I would like to have what we had at Forfar in a winner. See if I could just have that. Honestly, just sets everybody on fire. And see when McGinn comes into the team and Oni comes into the team and Gabriel Forsyth and all these guys. That's the thing. I mean, they look up, see red and white and guys roaring them when they do end. I think fans love their own, don't they?
Yep.
And so many teams don't have their own anymore. Yep. You know, if you look at the team lines as I do on a Sunday, you know, they've not got their own. But that's what I'm so. I actually want everybody just to enjoy themselves.
Yep.
And if we could have an old-fashioned football team in some respects, but a super trendy one in the others, that'd be good. And the more kids we can get along, and I said, I'll back whatever initiative you guys come up with. So if I put the ball in your
balls in our court, so
very much so.
Time to score.
Watch these 2 races now.
I know. We've got that race to come.
I've got heart conditions for the last 4 weeks.
Right, well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Ronnie, thank you again very much for joining us in the studio. We appreciate it. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.